am I the asshole for telling my wife we can adopt her nephews but not her niece?
Dang.
Yeah, I think it's got to be a package deal.
Yeah, it's got to be a package deal.
My wife's sister was recently found guilty of dealing to support her habit. She'll be sentenced next week and is looking towards a long term because this is not her first time caught dealing. She has 3 children, 2 boys, 4 and 5, and a girl, 14. No one on her family side wants to or is in the position to take the children except for me and my wife. However, I'm demanding 2 conditions. If we're going to take the children in, I want us to adopt them. I don't want 50 people looking over our shoulder trying to tell us what to do. If we're going to be legally responsible for them, I want to be able to parent them as we see fit. The second condition is that I'm willing to take the 2 boys but not the girl. The 2 boys have not had any rules in their life and are terrors, but they're still young and can be taught right from wrong. The girl has gone past the point of no return. She's been suspended from schools several times for things like fighting and smoking illegal substances on school grounds.
Whoa.
She's also stolen from us and other family members. She's dating a gang member who was arrested on a home invasion charge, but was released because it was his first time and of his age. This is a mess, and we've been arguing about it for an entire week. I don't want to risk our financial and personal security, but my wife argued that we can't just throw her away. At this point, we're not even sleeping in the same bed, but I'm hesitant to open our house up to the girl and her lifestyle. My wife argues that if we don't take her in, she'll go into foster care, but I pointed out that if we don't take any of them in, they'll all go into foster care. And then there's an update and a top comment, but I'll read the top comment first. As a social worker for CPS, cautious, no assholes here. But you need to tread carefully because your demands may not line up with reality. 4- and 5-year-olds raised in a chaotic and traumatizing environment will absolutely have some behavioral problems which you are relating to running wild. That may not be as easy to fix. They'll need extensive therapy. Whether you adopt them or not will not be up to you. You can ask it, but you won't be able to demand it nor expect it. It will be the choice of the judge based on how much or how little the parents comply with CPS requirements, how long the prison term is, etc. I would expect that you'd be fostering the kids for a minimum of 12 months before you're allowed to start the adoption process, depending on where you live. And yes, the courts and social workers will be up your ass during that time and 6 months after the adoption takes place. You need to think about that as a reality before committing to these kids. Signing adoption papers as soon as they come to your home will not be an option unless both parents agree and clear it with a judge, lawyers, and psych evals, etc. It just won't happen that way. Where I disagree with most Redditors, though, is about taking in the 14-year-old being inappropriate. If you do not feel like you can care for her, you shouldn't. But that shouldn't stop you from being a resource for the 2 kids that you're capable of protecting. I've been a long-term foster parent for children of friends and family, and I've done short-term foster care for kids in my office, anywhere from newborn to 17. A 14-year-old with gang affiliation, substance use, major trauma, and behavioral concerns is not something most people with good intentions are equipped for. You can't just love and therapy all those issues away. This kid sounds like she needs a higher level of care than you are equipped for. So you aren't wrong for recognizing that you can't give her what she needs. She needs an experienced parent with trauma-enforced skills and a ton of one-on-one attention. You aren't an asshole for having this boundary and understanding your limitations, and any social worker would tell you that. But be prepared that taking the boys will not be as easy as you imagine, and you will not be able to demand adoption. And if you take them, it will be a trial run, heavily supervised, and maybe adoption happens later. Reconsider your plans based on that knowledge and decide if you're still willing, and call your social worker. You may not be interested at all once you see what the plan will look like. So that was the top comment. 10,000 upvotes.
Ooh.
Update. I left out a lot of info because I was in shock and still am. We're both in our late 20s. We've been married for a little over 2 years, have no kids, and I just graduated with my advanced degree last year. Last month, we were talking about maybe having kids when we were in our mid-30s and about where we want to go on our Christmas vacation. Last week, my wife came home, sat me down, and told me that we're taking in 3 kids. I know nothing about adoption laws, CPS, or anything related to raising children, much less troubled children. I knew what was going on with her sister and was told my wife's parents were going to take the kids in. Apparently, they decided they're too old to take care of 3 kids. Of everyone in her family, we are the most financially secure and have a house, so when everyone backed out, she volunteered without asking me. That was the crux of our argument until I realized that it was happening with or without my agreement. That's when I told her that we can take the boys, but not the girls, which started another round of arguments. I have never raised any kids, so I know I can't deal with the baggage that the girl will bring into our lives. I can't begin to tell you all how shocking the whole thing is. Sometimes I feel like I'm outside, watching my life spin out of control. But I want to thank you for all of your insights, and especially but, which was the social worker, and the people working in CPS and or the legal system. Your advice is extremely helpful. Am I the asshole for getting upset when my mom told me that being disabled is my own fault?
No.
I, female 18, was run over by a car when I was 6.
Oh.
I was in a coma for a month, and one of my legs was crushed beyond repair and had to be amputated. While I was unconscious, my parents couldn't stop arguing, each blaming the other, saying the other was supposed to be looking after me. I woke up to discover my leg missing and my parents separated. They later got divorced.
What? You woke up to them being... Oh, my gosh.
Bro.
Well, she was out for a month.
Coma.
But I'm like, they move fast. They're like, yeah, we're...
Yeah.
Imagine you're in a coma dream and you just wake up like, my life's in shambles.
And your parents are like, yeah, we're getting divorced. You're like, oh, you guys were married.
Can I deal with one thing at a time? My leg's
Please.
gone. Let's worry about that first.
Mom had primary custody of us while we only got to see our dad every other weekend. I have 2 brothers, age 4 and 7 at the time, and they both blame me for the divorce. Though as they got over the shock, they realized that it was unfair and apologized to me. I discovered recently that my mom has continued to secretly blame me. I have a prosthetic leg, and with it, I'm able to be independent, including taking the public bus to school by myself. On the journey to school in the morning, it's always very busy, and some people have to stand. Most people take this bus every day and know me, and someone always offers me their seat if there are none available when I get on. I can't stand because it's hard for me to keep balance. This morning, there was an empty seat in the section reserved for disabled and elderly people, so I took it. The lady I sat down next to, she looked to be in her late 50s maybe, told me that I shouldn't be sitting there, that I was young and healthy, so I should stand. Also, her friend was getting on in a few stops, and she was an old lady who deserved the seat more than me. I chose not to dignify her with a response, though my younger brother and some kids from my school who heard her were trying to tell her that I need it. Her friend got on the bus, and the lady told me to get up, and I didn't move. My schoolmates continued to tell her that I needed it, and my brother told me to lift up my trousers so she would see. I told him that I wouldn't. This was, sadly, not the first time I was harassed on a bus transport, and I was done with this BS. I know I have the right to stay in that seat, and not everyone is able to visually prove their disability, so I refuse to do so. The bus driver got involved and told her to stop harassing me or she would have to get off. She wouldn't, so the driver made her get off. Her friend was not made to get off. She listened to my schoolmates and tried to calm her down. When I told the story to my mom, she said that I was rude and should have given up my seat. She said that I wasn't born with my disability and I ended up like this because I was stupid and reckless. It is true that I ran into the road without looking. The driver of the car couldn't stop. It wasn't his fault. He waited with me until an ambulance came and even wrapped his jumper around my wound to stop the bleeding. I was unconscious for this, but witnesses saw it. It was my fault, but I was only 6 years old, and I think I've been punished enough.
Right.
My mom kept on going. It was like a floodgate had opened. She told me that if I hadn't been so stupid, I would still have my leg, and she would still have a husband. Now I have felt guilty over the years and thought the same thing to myself, and then I reassure myself that no one else blames me. My brothers only did because they were young and in shock. Dad even said so himself, that the divorce was none of the kids' fault. I just couldn't believe that I had actually heard those words come out of her mouth. Mom accidentally clamped her hand against her mouth. She started apologizing and said she didn't mean it, and I didn't want to listen to her apologies. I was very hurt by what she said. I went to my room crying. I decided I didn't want to be here, so I packed a suitcase, called my dad. He told me he'd be right there. After I finished packing, I heard shouting, so I went to the front door where my dad was really laying into my mom, and she was crying. When she saw my suitcase, she told me that I couldn't just leave, but I told her that I'm 18 and I can do as I wish. I'm at my dad's house now, and now that I'm calmed down, I feel pretty rotten about making my mom cry and then just walking out on her. Am I the asshole? And then there's an update. Wow, I can't believe the responses to this. Thank you all for commenting, and thank you to everyone who has sent me supportive messages. There really isn't any news. I'm still at my dad's, and I haven't spoken to my mom yet. She has tried to call me, but I didn't answer. I didn't feel like speaking to her right now. I sent her a text asking her to give me some time, and she hasn't called back again. I noticed a lot of people are making assumptions about what happened when I had the accident, and I don't think either of my parents are to blame. Here's what happened. Mom and Dad were both in the house while my brothers and I were in our fenced-in front garden. My older brother and I were allowed to leave the garden to play at the houses of other children on our street. We weren't allowed to leave the street, and we weren't allowed to play in it either. As long as we asked first, we could go somewhere else. We had been taught to cross the road safely, but as we live on a quiet street with a little traffic, we stupidly felt safe, often forgetting to look both ways. The street we live on is a small side street with a dead end. The only cars are those belonging to residents or their visitors, so it isn't a busy street. A friend of mine lived across the street, and I saw her arriving home with her mom. She called me over to play, so I asked my mom, who said yes. I darted across the road from in between two parked cars. I was only looking forward to my friend's house a few doors down on the right and not to the left where there was a car almost right on top of me. There was no time for the driver to stop. I can only remember up to the point where I ran into the road and my mom's friend screamed my name. So the rest of the story is secondhand information from the witnesses. My brothers, my friend, her mom, and the next door neighbor. The driver was the adult son of a couple who live at the end of the street. He was a student living at home. I think he was around 20 at the time. Witnesses estimated that he was going about 20 miles per hour, which is the speed limit on our street. The two adult witnesses told the police exactly what happened and made sure to make it clear that the driver wasn't at fault, so he didn't get into any trouble.
My longtime boyfriend finally bought a gorgeous bouquet of red roses, but it was for another woman. How do I overcome this betrayal? You don't. You dump his ass and you move on. Completely shattered and heartbroken as I'm typing this. Yesterday, I, 28 female, found out in the most cruel way that my longtime boyfriend, 28 male of 6 years, has been unfaithful. For the past couple of months, he's been really distant and spending more time than usual at work. I chalked it up to stress since he started a new job recently. However, I started getting suspicious when all of a sudden he started following this gorgeous woman on Instagram who also returned his follow. I curiously asked him who she was, and he replied saying she was just an old school friend, which didn't make a lot of sense since her bio said she was 24 years old, which doesn't place them in the same school year. I'm sorry, how do you know if your boyfriend added someone new and he added her back? How do you know that? I just had this nagging feeling that something was off, and so I decided to stalk this woman's social media. On her Facebook, she had set her status to single and would regularly repost photos of women holding huge red rose bouquets, saying how every single girl deserves roses and how much she loves receiving flowers. I had a bad feeling about her and developed an obsession with checking her social media accounts daily. I kept doing that until all my worst fears were brutally fulfilled yesterday. As I checked her Facebook, I came across what I thought was just another one of her flower posts. That was until I took a closer look at the photo. It was a photo of a man's hand which was holding a bouquet of red roses for her as she caressed the flowers. The man's hand had the exact same Apple Watch that I had bought my boyfriend and that he was wearing daily, and a mole on the exact place where he has one. I could also tell it was him as he has naturally hairy hands. The woman's status was also changed from single to in a relationship. I'm sorry, people our age update their relationships on Facebook still? Okay, never mind. Finding out that my boyfriend was not only cheating on me, but also bought a bouquet of flowers for another woman when he never did for me completely shattered me. I haven't confronted him yet, but I've been avoiding him. It's not that hard since he barely pays me any attention these days. I know that there is no coming back from this, and this will be the end of what I thought was a lifetime relationship. I feel a lot of grief and heartbreak, but I also feel a lot of rage. How do I even overcome this? I just can't get his betrayal out of my mind. I'm going to tell you one thing, and I know it's going to be hard to actually execute. For anyone who's in this type of situation, if you want to hurt them the most, you just walk away silently. Just pick up, move, change your number, and just cut off contact like that. And never let that person have access to you again. That is the best form of revenge you can have. Cry it out, find someone to have a shoulder to lean on, do all of that, but just get yourself out of that situation and do not. I wouldn't confront him. I truly wouldn't. Once you know, just get out. Just leave. He doesn't deserve to talk to you anymore. He lost that.